everyone. Welcome back to Litigation Help. My name is Heather Hurditzwin, and today we have a very special guest. His name is David Brewster, and like me, David was a former self-represented litigant who has gone into a career in legal services. He's now a divorce coach, and his company is called Lion and Mouse. Hi, David.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm great.
I am so glad that you're here. I always love talking to former self-reps, kind of like share experiences and stuff. So yeah, so on that note, maybe you can start us off by telling us a little bit about your self-rep experience, sort of where you come from.
Okay. So my self-rep experience started back 10, 15 years ago. I can't
Oh,
remember now when
wow.
I was divorced. We were in very high conflict. Everything happened in our file. CAS, police, you name it, it's probably happened in our file. And it had progressed to a point where it became stressful on the kids, the conflict. It all sounds theoretical when you hear, oh, conflict hurts the kids in the end. It's all theoretical until it happens to your kids and it manifests in
Oh, wow.
physical ways.
Right.
And then when that happened several years in, we both smartened up and we took an evaluation of ourselves and like, we're not smart. And then we got ourselves on track. We had both remarried. We had both have since been not remarried a second time around. So glutton for punishment. And we get along fantastic now. So I've had the perspective of being what it's like being in that high conflict. And we're both like, in hindsight, we're both reasonable people. Like I understand completely where she was coming from. And I get why she was mad at me. I get it
Wow.
now in hindsight being 2020. But it helps to have that context of, oh yeah, I know what you're going through. I've been that. You're not telling me anything I haven't felt myself or seen myself or thought the other side was doing myself. I've seen all that stuff. Most of my files that I get are pretty high conflict, very high conflict. I see some really horrible things. I see the occasional mundane stuff, but I think the context of going through divorce twice, one high conflict, one meh procedural, isn't really a big deal,
Right.
helps put things into perspective. My litigation background, I'm aging myself now if my gray hair doesn't. My litigation background 25 or so years ago was corporate stuff. So I had a legal thing. I'm not a lawyer, I don't have a law license, but practicing for the company you work for, which is a retail chain across Canada, you can do that. And so that's kind of where I got my legal chops. And then Andrew Feldstein's kind of he's an acquaintance, a friend of mine, and he had convinced me that, oh, you should probably do this. So I did this. And that was about a year ago that I went from helping people just informally in the groups to doing something more formal, which is what I
How did Andrew discover you? I mean, tell me a little bit more about
Andrew
how
was my
that.
lawyer. So he was my
No.
lawyer
Oh
way
my
back
God.
at his firm. And I don't know how I'm not sure how we kept in contact, why it happened that way, but we were having lunch one day. We were both like sushi and Thai food. And I mentioned the self-help group in Facebook that I was
Right.
on and mentioned the problems that I come across and the workload. And then during that lunch, he said, well, you could do this and we could share some files if you want to do that, if you need counsel involved in some of these files, and we can work out a cost-effective way of doing that. Now that, oh, I wasn't even thinking of suggesting that to him, and he's the one that came up with the idea. He gloats about it now. Wasn't that a good idea I gave you? That was a really good idea. He gloats about it now, rightfully so. But that's how it came to be, I guess.
Are you still on that Facebook group?
I'm
Like,
still in that Facebook group.
right.
You can tell when my workload is high. I am in there occasionally.
Right.
So usually I'll get tagged a half dozen times a day, and then I'll go in, see what someone's tagging about, respond, and then I go back to work. So I'm not quite as active on there as I have been like a year ago.
Right.
That's probably a good indication.
And actually, so I should say to our viewers that that actually is how I met you, kind of,
Yes.
because I was on there. I don't know who recommended me to go on there, but I was on there, and then I'm like, who is this David Brewster?
Who is this guy who thinks he knows everything? How dare
Yeah.
he?
I know, but he's like, no. I was like, who is this David Brewster? He's giving really good advice. Sorry, let me just retract that. Not advice,
I
but
don't give advice.
like you don't give
I give
advice.
personal
But I mean,
experience, anecdotal
Yeah, so sort of like recommendations or whatever. Yeah, because that is a really good group. Like it's basically just a bunch of self reps to sort of getting
Yep.
together in a Facebook group, just kind of like sharing experiences. And I mean, actually, I tried to do that many years ago, but in person at the public library. But it's
Oh
hard.
yeah.
It's hard to get a group together. But yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't even remember how I got into the group, to be honest. And I have multiple friends, like outside of this world, like friends of mine that are
Yeah.
in that group. So I imagine someone had pointed me there and I got in. I can't remember. But occasionally I'll get like a text from a friend of mine referring to that group, and I'll say, "Are you in that group?" Completely forgetting that they're in the group. Like that happens all the time. So I've got friends in there. I think one of them must have got me into the group years ago. I honestly
Maybe,
can't
yeah.
remember because it was after I was needed any help. It was years after I was a self-litigant. So
Right.
I think that's how I got involved. I honestly can't remember how I got involved in that group, but I've been there for 2 or 3 years now, I guess.
But you were a self-rep, not only in the corporate side, but you were a self-rep at the family
Yeah,
level.
so yeah, it was after my self-repping in the family that I got into that group. So I didn't
Right.
get into that group looking for help, I don't think, because it was well past that. So
Oh,
that's what
interesting.
I'm trying to think. How did I get into that group to begin with? Someone must have asked me to go in. I honestly can't remember, which is kind of embarrassing. Maybe I'm senile. I don't know how I got in there, but I got in there, and it's entertaining, and it is gratifying to be able to
Mhm.
help some people who were exactly where I was years ago.
Yeah.
Some those that can be helped, some can't be. I mean, it's just the nature of the world. I'm sure at the time I thought I was right and I couldn't be helped, and then sometimes time fixes that perspective a bit for you.